And welcome in, everyone, to another edition of the Dynasty Force podcast. Here again, live tonight on this Wednesday, August 5th. I'm here with my beautiful. Oh, do you like that compliment, Billy? Beautiful.
Ooh.
You're so
Yeah,
pretty.
I love the compliment, bro.
You're so pretty, Billy. How are you doing today? Um, we are New Jersey residents, so we just got hit with that hurricane. I don't know how to pronounce it, so I'm just gonna say the one that starts with an I. Um, how are you holding up? Are you safe? Is your family safe? I hope you're doing well.
Yeah, I actually was slumped, fell asleep throughout the whole entire storm.
Of
Bro.
course,
I really noticed it too much.
it honestly, it really wasn't that strong. Like, it wasn't like, I don't know. I live in very southern New Jersey, and I look at the outage map, and it's like out across the board. Now, do you still live where you did before, or do you live in Philly now?
I actually been in New Jersey this past weekend.
So basically, here, yeah, essentially across all of South Jersey was the outages. Um, Probably more through Pennsylvania, a little up north, or down in Delaware as well. Um, but yeah, I hope everyone's staying safe around this area. And I'm very lucky to have power right now, Billy. I'm sure you're lucky and thankful for power. And that's definitely one of, you know, the main concerns: having power, having the ability to feed ourselves, and um, obviously shelter. But we tend to have that. But safety more than anything. Hope you're all staying safe out there. We have with us today guest, a friend from the Fantasy Analyzers. His name is Matt. Matt, how are you doing today? Um, completely forgot about this league that we're in, and I recently checked it. Saw you had Christian McCaffrey. Almost sent you an offer immediately.
Yes, I do. I actually live in Las Vegas, so you guys are dealing with hurricanes. I'm dealing with the heat. It's been over 100, of course, for the last month and a half, maybe. We hit 117 a few weeks ago. Currently, I'm on lunch, so I'm in the middle of my work day, but it's good to be joining in with you guys.
Yeah, the 3 hour time difference really makes a difference. It seems 6:16 where we are, so I feel like I'm about to get ready for bed after this podcast for work in the morning. Um, Also, I just saw on your team, Ronald Jones is currently your second running back. Um, I wanted to bring up really quickly. I don't have a little caption for this, but um, Ronald Jones was talked about by the team today. Might as well just get right into the little few pieces of news that we have. But Ronald Jones, Tampa Bay Buccaneers had an introductory press conference for LaShawn McCoy today. Yeah, thank you. And uh, Bruce Arians basically said that this job is Ronald Jones. He's the main guy. LaShawn McCoy came out and said that Ronald Jones is the main guy, and that he's here to sort of mentor him. So I'll start with you, Matt, since I see you have him on your dynasty team as a second running back behind Christian McCaffrey. What do you make of this news? What do you kind of think of Ronald Jones, at least for 2020?
So I see it as this guy. I was expecting kind of this news to come out. So the news doesn't really shock me. I think a lot of it's coach speak. I
Hmm.
think a lot of it is trying to sell his guy and make sure that he is confident in himself. Um, so as far as that, announcement, it doesn't say much to me personally. Sean McCoy comes in as a veteran. He's going to be able to pick up work similar to what he did with Damian Williams. Um,
Right.
but Ronald Jones is the guy. He's going to come in and he's going to get the work early on. How this season plays out is a big question. I think the first few
Definitely.
weeks we're going to see a lot of Ronald Jones. We're going to see how Arians responds to it, and we'll kind of see the progress from there.
Yeah, I agree with that. He'll definitely get the first crack at it. Um, as Billy likes to call the sort of process for rookies, iPad learning, um, where these rookies are really not out there on the field working with the team, but they're more so just
Doing
reading.
virtual training and stuff like that.
Yeah, things like it's not the same, as having the NFL experience is putting them a little behind. And plus, Keyshawn Vaughn apparently has COVID. I guess. I mean, he's been on the COVID list long enough to where I'm assuming that he has it. So Billy, the resident Ronald Jones hater here, tell me what you think of these remarks from Bruce Arians.
I mean, I couldn't agree with what Matt Moore said. What Matt said anymore. Honestly, I expected this news to come out. They're obviously going to talk up their guy. They put a lot of draft capital in them, so you definitely don't want to look stupid. A lot of GMs definitely don't want to look stupid and just blow away a draft pick. But
Yeah,
I think later on in the year, when it's not proven that he can get the job done, I think the biggest hole in the team is going to be for the third down work, either if that's Dare Ngubawale or Keyshawn Vaughn. I'm really going to try to target the pass catcher in that offense. Brady's pass catching running backs is always a fantasy target for people. It's really hard to predict who's going to get the touchdowns on that team. So hopefully I can nail whoever the pass catching running back is.
fingers crossed, right? Yeah, personally, like I said, I agree with the takes about Ronald Jones. I think Keyshawn Vaughn is more of a mid-season trade for a target rather than someone you want to draft. Um, he's going to keep falling, I think, in redraft though. So if you can get him late enough, he might be even at a point of value. Um, Maybe something along the lines of Kareem Hunt last season when Kareem Hunt was taken, not used for the first 8 weeks of the season, but then when he came back, it was actually a decent flex for a lot of people in fantasy. So, um, he could follow somewhat of the same trajectory. And then the only other piece of news I really want to talk about is Marquise Brown putting on some weight. Billy, apparently at some point last season, he was down to 157 pounds. Now, I know I am like 157 pounds, and I am not anywhere close to football conditions. So I want to know how this man, how first of all, how does adding 23 pounds to a guy like him help? And second of all, um, what do you take this as good news or bad news? Because I feel like a lot of times you don't want to see wide receivers put on weight.
I love this news, man. I think people really get people confused with the reality of like how sports work and all that. So you gotta understand, a kid like Marquise Brown was in college, eating probably not the healthiest of diets, is eating fast food and shit like that, and
Right.
whatever the school is gonna give him. Him gaining that weight, honestly, is just him improving his diet and becoming older as a person, growing in his maturity, really being Hollywood Brown. And you got to play the part and look the part. You know what I'm saying? And I think
Definitely.
if anything, that's going to help him deal with the pressure of being a number one wide receiver on this team, because he isn't the prototypical wide receiver number one type of build. Just like his cousin Antonio Brown, he's going to have to set expectations to a higher level. And I absolutely love this news for Hollywood Brown.
Matt, do you agree over there? I
I
think,
Yeah,
yeah,
I
go ahead.
mean, sorry about that. So yeah, I agree with Billy. I mean, there's a certain package you need to bring as the number one wide receiver, and strength is one of those. I don't expect this guy to be eating chips. You know what I mean? He
Yeah,
probably has his trainer. I haven't really looked into it myself, but a professional trainer to put on this weight that's going to be efficient, keeping his speed up, and then adding to that strength, being able to deal with that pressure and that press coverage, especially, and getting off the ball pretty quick. So I'm excited to see what this looks like.
definitely. I like what you mentioned about strength. It's a big key for people who are going to be wide receiver ones. It's got to be a way to beat press coverage. Though I feel like a lot of people aren't going to be pressing Hollywood because they're just so worried about his speed. But you still have to be able to beat it when
Of
it
course.
happens. Um, Detroit Beastie checking in. Look at these three. Love you, Chris, at Detroit Beastie on Twitter. You guys really need to follow him because he posts on at DFS Cheat Sheet 1 on Twitter. I believe it's just dfscheatsheet.com. Um, daily NHL and MLB lineups every day, and he gives you legit like hit the lineups that he is playing for free. It's literally free money out there that you can just go grab. He has a ton of success with it. Um, go check him out. You don't need to know anything about NHL or MLB in order to, just go click on these articles, read through it real quick. Um, it's a big time benefit. I was about to play it today, but I was just 2 seconds too late, and the game had already started. So I couldn't get in there, but I am 100%, looking forward to what Chris is posting in the future. Billy, I know you're big time in the DFS, and you've mentioned that he's helped you before too.
Yeah, for MLB, I can definitely attest him into Detroit Beasties articles and stuff like that. They always have a live stream over there at DFS cheat sheets every day. So definitely check that stuff out if you're in the different other sports and stuff like that. I played MLB DFS throughout the first couple of weeks of the season. I'm not really a big MLB guy. So just they talk about different stuff, just not like players and plays, just more of a game theory talk and stuff like that. And that's really helpful to people that play DFS.
For sure, for sure. All right, we are heading into our hopefully quick question. We'll see how it works out. But for today, who benefits the most from the wide receivers in Miami opting out? Now, we didn't mention this yet because they're not big names, but Allen Hurns and Albert Wilson, two wide receivers for the Miami Dolphins, have both opted out for the season. And either way you look at it, less wide receivers in an offense creates opportunity for other wide receivers in that offense. So, you have Devontae Parker as the clear number one. You have Mike Gesicki as the clear, really only tight end and used as a slot receiver sometimes. You have Preston Williams, who Miami is, quote, cautiously optimistic should be healthy for week one. And besides that, it's kind of up in the air. Jakeem Grant, Isaiah Ford, Gary Jennings, any other names you want to throw out there? Matt, who do you think benefits the most? I mean, it's not like I said, it's not a ton of vacated targets here, but what it is opportunity regardless.
Absolutely. So what I see off the bat is Matt Breida. He comes out today and says, "I'm the fastest man in the NFL." Well, let's see it. Get him the ball. So these drop off little, flat passes and things that he's going out for. He's really going to be used in that role, whether it's Tua or whenever he comes in, or Fitzpatrick, of course. So we'll see what that looks like. But I think Breida is the first thing that came to mind for me.
Yeah, I actually thought of Matt Breida first as well, by the way, because Matthew Betts at the Fantasy PT on Twitter, a writer for the Fantasy Footballers. He's a great football mind. He's done research before on where teams kind of go with their vacated targets, and he has found more often than not that they tend to go to the running back position just because it's just kind of easier for the quarterback theoretically. And I think we can all agree that Breida is going to be the pass catching back over Jordan Howard. So, this funnels a little more volume toward Matt Breida. I think it also creates a little more room for Gesicki this time around too. If you look at Gesicki's splits from last season to this, or the two halves of last season, one half with Preston Williams, one half without. When Preston Williams was playing, Gesicki was very, I don't want to say irrelevant, but essentially irrelevant. And in the second half, he really took off. He was the tight end 8, I believe, once once Williams went down. So I think this kind of just establishes his role more in being not an every down guy, but probably, around 70 to 80% of the snaps. Billy, what are your thoughts on this? And do you even want in on any piece of Miami's offense outside of Devontae Parker?
Oh, you know who I'm going to talk about. Monday,
Uh,
Kristen Williams has been cleared for football activity. Head coach Brian Flores said Monday. That was a pleasant surprise after Williams tore his ACL on November 3rd. He's been running and rehabbing and now focusing on learning. Last year, Preston Williams, through week 1 through 9, him and Devontae Parker were only separated by 2 fantasy points on the season. He led all rookies with 59 targets in a class where there is A.J. Brown, Scary Terry, Metcalf, Deebo Samuel, and Hollywood Brown, I should say. That's very
Holly
impressive.
Brown.
Yeah. Hollywood Brown. I think that's very impressive. And that just shows the type of upside talent Preston Williams can have in this offense. And if he can get everything together health-wise, I think he can beat out everybody else in this job. And he's the one that nobody's really talking about. And you can get him pretty late in drafts right now.
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of people were kind of weary on the fact that maybe he wasn't going to be ready for this season. But I tend to, side on the fact that I think he will be healthy. So that definitely will work out for Miami this season. Who do you think has a healthier season, real quick, Billy? Preston Williams or Deebo Samuel?
I would say
that they've talked about,
because Deebo Samuels is already hurt.
They've talked about how the year after the ACL tear is kind of the year where you deal with it, the lingering effects of it, as well as, in the future after that is when it tends to really heal.
Get into that kind of stuff because I feel like the way technology has grown throughout the years, we can't really go into the past of research of how ACL injuries affected players before, because back in the day, dude, like 5 or 6, 7 years ago, when I first started playing fantasy football, ACL injury was the all ends of your career. It was just as bad as a meniscus or a Achilles injury. But I feel like with the way technology has came around in the last couple of years, ACL injuries are a thing of the past. It's just a little bit of a Band-Aid into a wide receiver.
It's just a year. Yeah. Yep. All right. We are heading into our main segment of this episode. Let's kick it off with Matt here. Matt, we're going to talk about your first dark horse, and I am excited about you have the sleepers here for sure, so I'm excited for the argument in favor of these guys.
So you want me to deliver both of these right now or just the first?
You can do whichever one you want, and I will follow them up with a caption.
All right, so first, my first dark horse spent some time with the Broncos and then spent some time in Frisco. And now we find him in New Orleans. His quarterback now is Drew Brees. We know what that man can do. I don't have to explain Drew Brees to you. Emmanuel Sanders. Emmanuel Sanders is coming into a spot that he's quite familiar with. Demaryius Thomas and him on the Broncos had a great few seasons. Emmanuel Sanders had pockets of greatness. Of course, they're followed sometimes by pockets of not so greatness. But I currently see him being taken the 18th round. And if you're willing to take a flyer on a man like Emmanuel Sanders, late and that's where I want my upside is in those last 4 rounds of your leagues. Of course, in your dynasty leagues, he's a little older, of course, but that mixes things up. But
right.
Drew Brees delivering the ball to, of course, Michael Thomas. We have Alvin Kamara there. I think Emmanuel Sanders is third in line, and Brees can spread that ball around. So you're looking at someone that can accumulate yardage in the way they move the ball in those short routes with MT and Kamara. Emmanuel Sanders is another option that I think Brees is going to look to very often, and could find some security with him as well. I think he's being overlooked right now, and I think it might be due to the fact that he's moved so often the last few years. We're not quite sure what to expect of him week-to-week basis, but if you can find him in good spots against defense week-to-week wise, you're going to get a big hitter at times. So I'm excited about this upside that we see with Emmanuel Sanders on the Saints, and I will be picking him up as often as I can.
Yeah, I really agree with that. So much so that I've been bullied essentially by my fantasy forecast crew over the past, I don't know, month and a half or so since I made this trade in Dynasty. I gave up a lot for Emmanuel Sanders in the name of Dede Westbrook and the first round pick. And the reason that I gave up so much was because I was not, coming into the trade talk to play around. I was ready to get my guy. And I really think Emmanuel Sanders has the ability to still produce like a top, definitely a top 30 wide receiver in fantasy, and potentially a lot higher as a top 20, top 15
Absolutely.
even guy with Drew Brees as his quarterback right now. It's a huge upgrade for him, and not having to be the number one guy, getting shadowed by the number one corner every play only goes to help. Billy, I think we've talked a little bit about your thoughts on Emmanuel Sanders, but not enough. What do you think about him for 2020?
I like the thought of Emmanuel Sanders. When you get into the later rounds of your drafts, you have to target what type of guys you like, and Emmanuel Sanders is that steady, safe type of guy. For me, I kind of draft my tight ends and quarterbacks around that range, so I don't know how much Emmanuel Sanders I'm going to get to, but he's definitely a guy that I'll have like targets of in DFS like week to week and stuff like that. But never less to say I don't discredit the talent of the player.
Right. I definitely understand that. Another point, I guess I'll say in Emmanuel Sanders' favor is that those late round wide receivers that don't have a high floor, or I'm sorry, don't have a high ceiling, but do have the high floor. Jamison Crowder, Golden Tate, Emmanuel Sanders are the three that immediately come to mind. I think they're going to be more valuable this year with the coronavirus being so present week in, week out, that it's going to go a long way to have these important depth pieces that, so be it, you need them to start on a given week and they can easily give you 12 to 15 points. So I think drafting that depth is going to be important this year especially, and I think it'll play out well. Now, Billy, it's time for your first dark horse. You actually have 3, unlike the other ones of us, so I'm kind of jealous. you get to talk a little more today.
Mhm.
But because of that, um, you get to talk about a few. One is a little meh, and then two are rookies who for redraft are kind of meh. So it evens out. Who do you want to head into first?
We'll talk about the dude with the highest ADP.
Go on.
Cam Akers is the first person I'm going to talk about. I think he offers immense value despite being in a crowded Rams backfield this year. Todd Gurley was once the single most valuable fantasy commodity for the past couple of years. Last year, he ranked fourth among total snaps, fourth in routes run, and third in red zone carries. He will have massive upside in one of the most valuable roles in fantasy football. At the bottom floor, I think he can still carry flex upside value in a committee as the primary third down back. The opportunities in the passing game in the red zone following Gurley's departure are worth chasing. So that's the reason why I am buying into Cam Akers this year.
Yeah, I am 100% on board with you. I have been saying essentially since draft day that Cam Akers has the easiest role to being the guy, or easiest path to being the guy, in his backfield of all running backs, of all rookie running backs. At the time, Clyde Edwards-Helaire had Damian Williams to contend with, so obviously things have changed in that sense. But the path for Cam Akers is still there. He's going to be on the field week one. He's going to have the opportunity, and when you put him next to the likes of Darrell Henderson, of Malcolm Brown, and John Kelly, who they even mentioned is using, when you put him next to those guys, you're just going to see that Cam Akers is the most talented running back of the group, and there's no reason to take the most talented running back in your offense off the field. So for me, Cam Akers is the guy that I'm targeting in the Rams backfield. I'm fine with paying the 5th round price that he's currently at. Matt, do you agree on the idea of Cam Akers? I know you mentioned that you were thinking about putting Darrell Henderson in as a dark horse here.
So I love the competition between these two. Cam Akers was actually my third ranked running back going into the draft. The only two I had before him was Swift and Jonathan Taylor, of course. Clyde Edwards-Helaire kind of came out of nowhere with that pick by Kansas City.
Right.
Later on, of course. So Cam Akers and his skill set, I watched some film on him. This guy is going to be fun to watch, and currently in that 5th round arena, he's a value as it stands. So I'm definitely with Billy on this. Give me Cam Akers and as much as possible, please.
Please and thank you. Yeah, I think he's going to be heavily utilized. As Billy mentioned, Todd Gurley, 4th most route runs among all running backs last season. He was running routes. He just wasn't catching passes. He wasn't being targeted. So I think they're still going to have Cam Akers out there running routes. And, I think the difference is just that they're going to actually target Cam Akers. Unlike last year where they just didn't target Todd Gurley. So, yeah, I think the upside for Cam Akers is really great for this season. And like I said, I think he, other than Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who kind of lucked into that situation with Damian Williams opting out, he has the easiest path to a big-time role. Now, Matt, you did mention that you're on lunch. I understand that your lunch is ending soon. So how about you come out here with your second dark horse for this episode?
All right, so it's funny that we discussed a little bit of Matt Breida earlier, and my dark horse is Jordan Howard. Jordan Howard is now behind an offensive line that is being rebuilt. We have about 3 veteran pieces as well as two offensive linemen that were drafted by the Dolphins in the first 2 rounds. So two tackles, Austin Jackson and Robert Hunt. Austin Jackson is a beast. He's going to slide into this role and really provide Jordan Howard with some run blocking that Jordan Howard may have not seen in the last few seasons. I think people have forgotten who Jordan Howard was of Bears days. He's someone that's going to produce on the ground. So when the Dolphins early on in games want to, establish that run game to hopefully take leads. Of course, it's a rebuilding team. It's kind of a upside, low floor kind of team right now. But if we see Tua come in and we see, this offensive line come together as a unit, Jordan Howard is going to have the opportunities and the ability to move the ball on the ground. So I understand, Dolphins hasn't looked great in the recent years, maybe recent 25 years. Dan Marino comes to mind, of course. But 30 years ago or whatever that was. But the Dolphins are now being rebuilt. They're shiny and they're new. And with Preston Williams, Devontae Parker, Mike Gesicki, those offensive weapons are going to absolutely help Jordan Howard get to that next level and produce some yards for you and hopefully some goal line work as well.
Yeah, definitely. I love that you mentioned Jordan Howard because you mentioned their reworking of the offensive line. I think it takes a little bit of chemistry, but they should be able to work that out, hopefully over the preseason, if not in the first few weeks of the season. And Jordan Howard has always been a great runner. The problem has never been with Jordan Howard as a runner. The only question has been, how good can you be if you're not getting the receiving work? But I think it favors Miami's future for them to establish a running game, something they couldn't do last season. So I think bringing in the new offensive linemen, like Austin Jackson, Robert Hunt, they signed Eric Flowers, guys of that nature. I think it only stands to help their running game. And what's a great way to help Tua succeed and protect him is to give him a running game. So you go out and you sign a great runner like Jordan Howard. I have to agree with you that he's probably sitting here about to get 250 carries in a revamped offense that has added a decent amount of pieces on defense and should have, I don't think Miami's going to be a top 10 offense, but I would not be surprised to see them in the top half of the league either. And at that point, Jordan Howard is definitely a value where he's going right now. Billy, you're an Eagles fan. How do you feel about the former Eagle on the Miami Dolphins?
I really don't like Jordan Howard's opportunity for the upcoming season. I get there's a lot of vacated. It's a good opportunity, I guess you could say, on paper. But overall, I feel like Jordan Howard has benefited from just good offensive lines and good situations of previously of being the workhorse for the Bears and then falling into the situation that he did with the Eagles last year with being just the red zone back and the touchdowns kind of salvage his numbers. I kind of like attacking the pass catchers a little bit more. So I'm more of a fan of Matt Breida and hope I can catch lightning in a bottle there rather than drafting Jordan Howard, and I know what I'm getting.
Right. Yeah. And it's definitely a strategy. And honestly, you could probably win either way. You probably, sometimes you hit by getting the pass catcher and then they take over, or sometimes you hit by getting the bulk of the carries and then, they just kind of go from there. New England Patriots, I think it was back-to-back years. One year, LeGarrette Blount had 18 touchdowns on the ground, and then the next year, James White had, 90 receptions? So it's hit or miss, either one. You can definitely win with both. So these are two guys to target potentially in the same backfield. Matt, I'm going to let you go. I know you got to get back to work. Thanks so much for coming on. Thank you for spending your lunch with us, and I hope that it wasn't too much of a bother for you.
Oh no, it's definitely a pleasure to sit down with you guys and kind of discuss this upcoming season, what these players look like. Hopefully I can be back. But yeah, definitely appreciate you guys having me. Thank you.
Sure thing. Follow
Farewell,
Matt.
everyone.
Follow Matt on Twitter at Fantasy Salesman. Follow his page. You can see their logo and their Twitter on the screen at Fantasy Analyze. Matt, enjoy the last 2 minutes of your lunch and have fun going back to work. All right, so back into the Fantasy Dark Horses. We're going to finish this out just Billy and I now. Let's go back to Billy here for his second Dark Horse pick. Billy, the floor is yours. Go ham.
I will talk about another rookie coming in for this upcoming season, Jalen Reagor of the Philadelphia Eagles. The end of last season, the Eagles wide receiving core was left with Greg Ward and J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. It was the top position of need this offseason. The Eagles addressed the situation with Reagor in the first and John Hightower and Quez Watkins in the 5th and 6th round. Alshon Jeffrey is lingering with injury, still recovering from the Lisfranc injury, opening up on the PUP list. I doubt he's ready to go for the start of the season. Jackson is currently healthy, but he's 33 years old and missed at least 2 games in 4 of the 5 last seasons he's played. Among rookie wide receivers, I think Jalen Reagor has the clearest path to being his team's number 1 wide receiver. Jalen Reagor is currently drafted as the wide receiver 47 off the board. However, I think we're drafting him at his floor. I like to attack wide receivers with a wide range of outcomes as my wide receiver 2 and 3s, maybe even 4, depending on what type of builds I go for. The wide receiver 47, which is his floor, is close to Tyrell Williams last year, who had 42 receptions on 64 targets and 651 yards and 6 touchdowns. I think Reagor's ceiling is more reflected of wide receiver 24 last year, which was Stephon Diggs, 63 catches for 1,130 yards and 6 touchdowns. I like the current draft position. It's lined up with his independent value without accounting for his ceiling.
Yeah, you mentioned that Reagor has the easiest path to kind of becoming his team's 1. At the moment, Deshaun Jackson is kind of in that role, but I mean, outside of Deshaun Jackson, if Alshon Jeffrey does start completely on the pup for this season, which we expect, as he is on the pup now, he would miss 6 seasons. So someone's going to be out on the field with Deshaun Jackson. As of now, we're kind of looking at the other starter being either Reagor or Arcega-Whiteside or Greg Ward being used in that sort of third wide receiver role. So I think when we're just talking about talent, Reagor is easily the best of those 3. And when you're talking about the longevity of Deshaun Jackson, you can't speak forever. Deshaun Jackson is someone that I'm really targeting later in drafts because I think when he is healthy, he's going to give you great games. But the problem is, how long will he really stay healthy? And you highlighted it with how often he misses games. Would you be interested in pairing Jalen Reagor with Deshaun Jackson based on draft price? Because Deshaun Jackson, Reagor as the 47th wide receiver off the board, he's still in that 10th round, isn't he? Whereas Deshaun Jackson's more of like a very last round pick.
I do like Deshaun Jackson still. Would I be interested with wide receiver stacking that situation? Yes.
I honestly, I don't see why not. Like, I think it kind of goes hand in hand where, like, if Jackson doesn't pan out, Jalen Reagor is likely the next man up in that situation. And the cost is so low that it's not really hurting him. So I definitely like the take. I like the sides of it. For my first fantasy dark horse for the 2020 season, I'm going to talk about a running back who there's a lot going on with him, but he is deservedly around the back end of the first round this season. And if you can get him any later, he's a steal. I've been seeing him go later in Dynasty leagues. I've been seeing some hate on him in Twitter, and I don't understand the hate for Kenyon Drake, running back for the Arizona Cardinals. Now, first of all, I want to say that Kenyon Drake, up until he was traded to the Arizona Cardinals last season, was extremely underutilized for his entire career. There was a stretch. I don't remember. I believe it was his rookie season with Miami when Adam Gase was the head coach, where every other running back was injured and Kenyon Drake was the last man standing, and he was heavily utilized and he did produce in fantasy. Since then, it's been about 3 seasons, and Drake has not produced very much because he's not been utilized in that fashion. He's been exclusively a passing down work. We wondered why time and again Frank Gore was stealing work from Kenyon Drake in the Adam Gase offense, and it's preference. And then you see Kenyon Drake get put into a good situation in Arizona last season. Kyler Murray at the quarterback position, a runner who will open things up for Kenyon Drake. The 4 wide receiver sets that they run, which spread things out and make it hard to stack the box against Kenyon Drake. The Cliff Kingsbury system, where it's heavily used in the shotgun and finds ways to get the running back into space, get him the work in passing work. There's going to be so much opportunity for Kenyon Drake, and we saw that because after he was traded to Arizona last season, he was the running back 4 throughout the rest of the season, and that was on his usage. So for me, I really like Kenyon Drake, and then you look at some of the matchups that he had involved. He played San Francisco twice, Seattle in there a few times as well. Those are teams that are not giving up points easily to the running back position. So I think Kenyon Drake made a name for himself sort of last season. The team is paying him about $10 million to play running back for them this season. I don't see the Chase Edmonds argument because, they're paying Kenyon Drake, and yeah, you can have 2 running backs that can produce pretty similarly in the same role, but we've seen it out of Kenyon Drake for longer stretches. We saw one game out of Chase Edmonds, and we see the investment on Kenyon Drake. If they really believed that much in Chase Edmonds, then they would have just let Drake walk instead of paying him $10 million. So, Billy, what are your thoughts on Kenyon Drake? By a dark horse, I mean he's going around RB8 to RB10 range, and I think he really has the upside to finish as the RB1. Not saying that he will, but I think that is in his range of outcomes.
I do like Kenyon Drake. The only bad thing that I would say about Kenyon Drake, he kind of gives me Damian Williams type of vibes from last year. But other than that, I feel like not talking about narratives, just himself, and on paper, he should be a top 10 back this season, I think. I am a high investor of Kenyon Drake. I didn't think I would be early on in the offseason, but he's fell on literally all of my teams just by just the value that he's going. I have him ranked as a as a back end RB1, like around that 12-11 range, and I've been getting him around that 15 to 16 range. I'd much rather have a guy like Kenyon Drake over a trendy industry guy like Austin Eckler.
Definitely, yeah. I have Kenyon Drake over Austin Eckler. I want to check to be positive on where I have Kenyon Drake. I want to say that he's my RB9. He is my RB8. I actually may move him down a little bit because I have him over Miles Sanders, and recent coach speak kind of has me wanting to move Sanders up a bit more. So we'll see how that works in my future rankings. But yeah, like Kenyon Drake, Miles Sanders, I think they're kind of in that same sort of boat where you're not paying top price for them, but if you're looking for a guy who has the upside to finish as one of those top guys, uh, those two definitely have that upside. I don't necessarily see with guys like uh, Austin Eckler, Josh Jacobs, and even Aaron Jones at that point, with the competition that they have in the running back rooms. All right, Billy, your final dark horse for the 2020 season. I like this pick. I'm not sure how far you're willing to go with calling him a dark horse. How good you're saying he's going to be.
The last dark horse that I have is Jack Doyle. If you follow me on Twitter, he was the preview for this. A lot of these dark horses that we picked for today's episode is really just preaching on draft theories, and this one definitely highlights draft theory of going late round tight end. And Jack Doyle's ADP right now is so late that you're really not investing a lot into him. I think the I think the bust tight end range is the rounds 6 through 9 for tight ends. Everybody wants to draft tight ends in that range. Throughout the years, bust have been like Evan Ingram, Hunter Henry, stuff like that. A lot of variance happens in those type of rounds, so I like to get my tight end either really early, like Zach Ertz and Travis Kelce, or really late, like Jack Doyle. With Ebron out of the lineup from week 12 to week 17, he had 31 targets. That was 20% target share on the Colts. The coaching staff, Frank Wright, and quarterback Philip Rivers both love their tight ends. In the last 6 seasons, Frank Wright's tight ends have averaged a 23% target share. I believe Jack Doyle has the week-to-week consistency in PPR leagues, and he also has tight end one upside by the end of the season by being on the field.
Yeah. You mentioned though. All right. Philip Rivers definitely helps. Like, he is a quarterback who, for his entire career, has loved the tight end position. Antonio Gates and he have I believe it's a record for how much they have connected for touchdowns. Now, Jack Doyle has never necessarily been a red zone target, but that could change this season because it's between him and Trey Burton, and I'm not exactly sure what to expect of Trey Burton. You know, we saw him as the starter for one season in Chicago, and he was kind of underwhelming. And then you saw him very injury prone last season, which is extremely underwhelming. So what can we really expect of Trey Burton? So Jack Doyle to me is the clear number one tight end. And he's going to be one of Philip Rivers' favorite targets, especially with T.Y. Hilton. I'm not sure if you saw this, but he has a hamstring issue on the same leg that he had calf issues with last season, which kind of gives you some pause, just because the soft tissues are something you don't want to see recurring injuries in the same leg of a 30-year-old wide receiver. So Jack Doyle may not be the sexiest pick, but he's going to be that safe, reliable, probably finish as a tight end 7 or 8 because he's just getting you that 10 to 13 points each week, and that's valuable. That's valuable enough, especially if you're getting him with that last pick. personally, I had a great point that I was going to point out, but now I completely forgot it. Can't linger on that. So instead, I'm going to head into my final dark horse for the 2020 season. I'm just going to come right out with it because it's kind of ugly. But Sammy Watkins is being too disrespected, in my opinion, for what he could possibly become. Sammy Watkins, I so last season, week 1, he put up 47 fantasy points, I believe, when Tyreek Hill went down to injury, and that was against Jacksonville. That at that point in time still had Jalen Ramsey, still had AJ Bouye, had all the pieces that they lost. So they were still a great defense at that time, and he had an incredible week. Um, then he kind of just disappeared until the playoffs came up. But I mean, when the playoffs came up, in 3 games, Sammy Watkins got 18 targets, and on 18 targets, he caught 14 of those passes for 288 yards, which is over 20 yards per catch. Had a touchdown in there too, a long of 60 yards. Um, he was really good over the playoffs, and that was when Kansas City needed him most. I looked into some research for this upcoming season, kind of what people are realistically expecting for Patrick Mahomes. Um, I found on, I believe it was a Bleacher Report article that says, to this point, if you take what Pat Mahomes has done in the regular season and you average it out over 16 games, he averages, let me see, the exact number is 4,858 passing yards and 39 touchdowns, which is pretty good. Pretty good. I did some math, and if you take Travis Kelce's best season, which was 2018, 103 receptions, 1,336 yards, 10 touchdowns. You take 2018 Tyreek Hill, which is 87 receptions for 1,479 yards and 12 touchdowns. And then you take Kareem Hunt's best season, which was also 2018. I'm sorry, not his best.
Uh-oh. High five in the movies. I guess that's done the episode then.
Hello, everyone. I am so sorry um, for the miscommunication mistake happening again. Um, Same laptop, same issue. I should have prepared for this more, more so than I did, and
You're cutting out so bad.
I did not. And here I am. Hello there. I am very sorry. I cannot seem to what is going on right now. Billy,
Yeah, you sound
I'm
very
sorry to you too.
staticky. I mean,
I know
uh, you just want to end it because I mean that was basically like the end anyway.
Listen, let me just finish exactly what I was going to say about Sammy Watkins real quick. When you work out the best seasons for Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, what Kareem Hunt did with Pat Mahomes as a starter, it works out to about 1,500 and yards and 7 touchdowns remaining. Not saying they're all going to Sammy Watkins, but if he even gets 800 yards and 4 touchdowns, he's going to outscore where he's going right now. So I think he has the room for much more. That's saying that, the three of those players that I mentioned are going to combine for 32 touchdowns. I think that's kind of hard to expect. So personally, I think Sammy Watkins has the potential to be much more than what he's currently being drafted as. I'm a big McCole Hardman fan, and I'm going to be the first to tell you that McCole Hardman's not overtaking Sammy Watkins as the starting wide receiver for this season. Billy, really quick, do you agree? Do you disagree?
I would disagree, but I can understand the shot of taking with Samuel Watkins.
Just from the mindset, Pat Mahomes, wide receiver 2, it has to have value, right? Like you just think it kind of only makes sense, especially when you saw Aaron Rodgers support 3 wide receivers for so long. All right, guys. Again, I am so sorry about the Wi-Fi issues. I'm going to try to get that fixed and worked for the future. Um, Thanks again for tuning in, everyone, for putting up with my issues. Thanks to Matt for showing up on the pod today. Again, follow him at Fantasy Salesman. Follow his page at Fantasy Analyze. Billy, do you have any plans for this week? Do you have any upcoming, I don't know, articles, thoughts?
No plans for this upcoming week. Just another week at the grind of NBA and PGA.
Yeah, I definitely understand that. I am going to be doing some mock drafts and preparing for this upcoming fantasy season because I'm excited. Even with COVID probably throwing a damper on things, I'm excited to get going and get back on the grind. So, thank you again to all of you listening. Follow me on Twitter at FantasyForceFB. Follow Billy at Getting Bills. And follow the show at Dynasty Force Pod. And watch us on YouTube, Dynasty Force Podcast. Thanks again. Catch you next week, same time. same place, same day, Wednesday, 6 p.m. Eastern. Enjoy your week, and hopefully we have some great fantasy news to talk with you about for next week's pod.